Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, The Tragic Tale of the Late Bloomer, by AtomX994. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin Chapter 1, Self-Employed Quirk Consultant, Izuku Yagi. We begin our tale, with a 28-year-old Izuku, tending to his appearance in his bathroom, as he brushes his teeth, his hair, and begins to put on a stylish gray suit on, followed up by a well-tended-to pink tie. Okay, Izuku got another day of work. But that's okay, because you've got a very important date tonight. Yeah, you're gonna take her to a super fancy restaurant after work, and ask her to be your girlfriend. He says to his reflection. Now then, let's just get this day of work over with, then I can officially make her my girlfriend. He exits the apartment, and boards a bus at the nearby bus stop, where he looks around, seeing many things. From young high school kids wearing their favorite hero merch while playing games on their phones, to old couples resting on the seats of the vehicle. However, this calming bus trip would be interrupted by the explosions nearby, followed up by the sight of a green streak of lightning passing the civilians by. Look! It's Green Empress. One of the civilians yells out. It is. Izuku, slightly annoyed at the sudden mention of the name, looks in the general direction, to see what looks like a gender-bent version of himself, with noticeable muscles all over her body, shown by her skin-tight costume, and straight green hair, drooping down the sides of her head. In the sky, we see what looks like a large, red villain with claws, attempting to attack her, as she dodges effortlessly. Detroit SMASH. She yells out, sending the villain flying into a nearby building. The people on the bus begin to cheer for the hero's fight, while Izuku looks away in annoyance. After he exits the bus, his face bears a less than pleased expression. It's okay, Izuku. It's just one of those days where you see her. He mutters to himself. Just focus. After about an hour of riding the bus, Izuku enters the small, two-story building in front of him, quickly fixing up his hair, before beginning a montage of his daily life at work. Though, unlike the intended purpose of his makeshift business, most of the calls were mostly that of everyday annoyances. This usually ranged from, his elderly neighbor, asking him to assist her with turning up the volume on her remote, him having to explain to middle-aged men that the drag known as trigger, the kind used in stopping erectile dysfunction, had the unintended side effect of supercharged quirks, or yelling at middle-aged women who mistook his business as a private investigator and asking him to tail their spouses, thinking they were cheating. But regardless, lunchtime finally arrived, and we see Izuku, now on his personal phone, calling a specific number. His soon-to-be girlfriend's number. Hello. It's Izuku. Oh, hi Yagi. So listen, I know this is a bit of a last-minute thing, but I booked us a table at a fancy restaurant, and I was hoping you could come. 'Cause I have something important to ask you. Hey Yagi, yeah. I'm really sorry about this, but hey babe, who's on the phone? A male voice calls out. Izuku's eyes go blank slightly upon hearing this, his mouth slightly open, as some air begins to leave his body. Huh. Sorry Yagi, my boyfriend and I are going to a family dinner tonight, so I'm afraid we can't hang out today. Oh, I see. If they charge you a cancellation fee, I can help pay for it, just call me if that's the case. But anyway, I gotta go, talk to you soon Yagi. The call ends, and all Izuku hears in that moment is the blaring noise of the phone line, unable to move or say a word, as reality finally sets in. He never stood a chance. His love interest was already in a relationship. Elsewhere, we see ourselves observing a classroom full of children around 6 years old, staring at the front of the class while the teacher writes something on the whiteboard behind her. Out of the class of 20, only one student really doesn't pay any attention to the teacher. A young girl with curly ash blonde hair, resting her head on the desk, while a snot bubble begins to expand and shrink in the process. NGH, no grandma, I don't wanna eat any vegetables. The blonde girl mutters while snoring. Because they freaking Bakugo. The teacher says out loud. The blonde girl wakes up suddenly, the snot bubble popping quickly as she looks around in confusion. If you're going to take a nap, please do it after class. Some of the other kids begin to chuckle at this, while the blonde girl grows a look of annoyance. Honestly, I had thought that the daughter of the number 1 hero and number 2 would learn how to pay attention. A young male voice speaks out. I guess much like your dad, you're also an idiot. What was that, Monoma? I'll kick your butt. The blonde girl yells out. And that abhorrent language. Surely this is no way for a child to speak. In case you haven't noticed, you're still a kid too, Naoki. Plus, picking on a girl isn't very manly of you, so stop being an idiot and leave her alone. Another male voice calls out. The voice in question comes from a small boy with pink hair and skin. TCH, Reiji. Now, students. Let's settle down. The teacher tells them. Anyways, let's continue with our lesson. Whatever. The kid known as Naoki mutters. At the end of the school day, we see the blonde girl and the now named Reiji walking out of the building together. The blonde playing with what looks to be a small handheld console playing what looks to be a remaster of a game from the classic era, Pokemon Heart Gold. Thanks for the help, Reiji. The blonde commented, as she played the game. It's all good, Hannah. Say, did you manage to defeat Champion Lance yet? Unfortunately not. That guy and his 3 stupid Dragonites keep ruining my chances at winning. That SCKS. And what's worse, the BSTRD keeps on spamming full restores every time I get him to low health. Well, you don't get to be champion of the Pokemon League without knowing how to spam full restores. Reiji comments. I managed to beat him on my first try, so if you want I can come by your house later and help you. You do that. Thanks, Reiji. As the two walk out of the building, we see a large man with thick red hair approaching the two, a smile on his face as he opens his arms wide. Dad! Reiji calls out. Hey Reiji. How was school? He asks as his son gives him a mighty hug. It was all right. Though Naoki was causing trouble again, so I had to show him that what he was doing wasn't very manly. Atta boy. His father says to him. Oh, hey Hannabi. Sorry about no saying hi. How are you? Don't worry, Uncle Kirishima. I'm all right. Just annoyed about Naoki and his antics. Yeah, I take it that's Monoma's influence causing him to act like that. Yeah, he's just a stupid head that thinks he's smart. But Hannabi is much stronger. She said, referring to herself in the third person. I have no doubt you are. By the way, do you need me to walk you home? I noticed Izumi or Bakugo hasn't shown up yet. Don't worry Uncle Kirishima, I'll be able to get home on my own. Okay, hope you get home safely. Oh, and say hi to your little brother for me. As the two Kirishimas walk away from her, Hannabi begins to walk away from the school, using her small height to pass through the crowds with ease, attempting to make her way to the bus as best as she could. However, she trips on the ground, causing her to fall over, as the bus begins to leave. No. I missed it. She thought to herself. And on top of that, my knee has an injury. If only Big Sis Eri was here, she could have healed me by now. Ack. If only I didn't run so fast. Getting up from the ground, she weakly puts her right shoulder against a building wall, holding her up as she continues to walk. However, something catches her attention on her way to the nearest bus stop. A large sign with the words, Musutifu Quirk Consultants. She had seen the sign countless times on her way home, but she never understood what goes on in there, or what exactly a quirk consultant is. This made her curious, deciding to walk into the building despite not having an adult accompany her. As she walks up the stairs, she hears the sounds of a singular voice, an adult arguing with someone on the phone, hearing words like, spoiled brat or, idiot mother, before eventually reaching the top of the stairs and seeing a man in a gray suit on the phone. But what surprised her the most, was the curly green hair on his head. This had been the first time she saw the man, and from a glance, she could have sworn this was her mum, up until she saw his face, bearing a striking resemblance to her mother, yet having features that distinguished this man from her. No way, this guy looks exactly like mum. She mutters. Look, all I'm saying is that it's impossible for a dog to have a quirk, ma'am. One of your kids must have done it. She continues to hear the conversation on the phone from afar, slightly giggling at the man yelling at the person on the other end, before he ends the call and slumps on his chair. Damn it. He mutters, wiping the sweat off his face. First my crush turns out to have a boyfriend, and now this. Letting out a loud sigh, he grabs out a lighter and cigarette, before lighting it up and taking a large puff out of it. I should just end this business and get a job at an office building or something. The man mutters. At least I could make some actual money from that instead of this. Hannabi observes the man from the corner, and is slightly saddened by his current expression. Pure sadness. For reasons we don't yet know, Hannabi could understand that this man was clearly in pain, but one that could not be healed simply with a quirk. Even if this girl did inherit her father's explosive temper, she still showed empathy to those who were sad, even this man here. But what could she do to help him? As she pondered on this, she accidentally loses her grip, and falls to the floor, alarming Izuku to her presence. Shoot. I got spotted. She thought to herself. Izuku sees the small child laying on the ground, beginning to approach her, while quickly putting out the cigarette in his mouth. The small, blonde curly-haired girl was wearing a black and green dress, with a white and blue shirt underneath, and bright red shoes. Hello, small child. What are you doing here? Izuku asks her. The little girl lifts herself up, making eye contact with him. Sorry, mister. I just came in here as a dare. Please don't yell at me. She says, playing off the accident. But, a stinging sensation causes her to make a painful sound, catching Izuku's attention to the graze on her knee. Your knee is bleeding, you okay? What do you think? Of course I am. She says rudely before changing her expression. Sorry, sir. I shouldn't have yelled at you. Don't worry, I'm used to people yelling at me. Your apology is accepted. He says, as he walks to his desk. He grabs out what looks like a med kit, grabbing a roll of bandages, and a small bottle of disinfectant, rubbing it on the wound before wrapping the bandage across her leg. This will hurt for a little bit, but the disinfectant should make sure no infections form on it. Thank you, sir. She mutters. It's nothing. So, are your friends or parents outside? He asks her. No. She says, shaking her head. I take it that whole, came here on a dare, thing was an excuse to not get in trouble, am I right? The girl nods at this, as she wobbles over to the couch and lays on it, resting her leg. So what are you doing here anyway? Shouldn't you be heading home? I was, but then I missed my bus and ended up injuring myself after tripping. I see. So no one even tries to pick you up from school. That's a bit irresponsible. Well, both my parents work, and my grandparent do the same, so scheduling pickups are a bit tough for them. I mean, I guess, but there's a lot of creeps in the world, they should have at least taken that into account. I guess. She muttered. Izuku heads to the small fridge in the corner of the room, grabbing a small apple-flavored juice box out and handing it to the girl. Here. It isn't the best brand, but you should drink something. Thank you. Izuku was heading back to his desk, putting away the med kit, while Hannabi merely partook at the juice box in her hand. Are you okay? Of course, why wouldn't I be? Because I heard you talking about your crush, and saw your sad face. I was just wondering if you were okay. Oh, right, I forgot about that. Well, you don't need to worry yourself about that. It's just something us adults have to live with. You've still got a fair bit left before you need to worry about relationships. I see, are you okay? Izuku asks her. The small 6-year-old was confused by this. Why did a total stranger want to know about her well-being? More importantly, why did she ask him about his well-being? Regardless, something in her mind caused her to open up to the man. Well, I haven't been, recently, she says, taking a sip from the juice box. Huh. See, I'm worried that my parents aren't gonna love me anymore. Izuku opens his eyes quickly upon hearing those words, before hearing the girl's story unfold. A few weeks ago my little brother got his quirk, and well, things began to slightly change between us. Changes between you and your parents? Yeah. He got my father's quirk, with it having the potential to be more powerful than his, so he and my mother began to give him more attention. I see. The sounds of sobbing begin to grow louder, with Izuku seeing the small girl's eyes watering up, and becoming slightly red. I just want to know that they love me, she says in between sniffles. I don't want them to throw me away just because my quirk isn't powerful or cool. I just wish they could see me. As she continued to cry, Izuku was reminded of something in his mind. Memories of a time when he was once a child who also felt the same way, forgotten, alone, useless. Sure, he managed to pull himself out of that dark hole on his own, but the pain was still etched into his heart, forever scaring him. He didn't want to see anyone else go through that same pain, even if it was someone he never met before. Kid. I know this might sound a bit preachy from a stranger like myself, but I want you to know you are more than just the power you inherit. Lying ahead of you is a story waiting to be written. A story of a young girl living her life. Some chapters with love, some with pain, suffering, anguish. But that doesn't mean there aren't people who don't love you. In this big expansive world of ours there are always people who are willing to listen, people who want to help you, to love you, to cherish you. The girl wiped her face of the tears, as she continued to listen to the man's words to her. As for Izuku, he wasn't sure if his words would reach her heart, but all he could do was do his best. That's right, the only thing I can do to help her, to ease her mind on these things. Otherwise, she could end up a sad and lonely person like myself. And she deserves better than to end up like me. He thinks to himself. Just because some have super powerful quirks and others have average quirks, it doesn't mean you're any less of a person than everyone else. There are people who are fast, people who are super strong, and people who are super smart. Your quirk is just like that, another characteristic. You must embrace that characteristic as a part of yourself and continue to live positively. After all, the truth behind one's charm is kindness. So just be a good person. You got it. The young girl continues to look up to the man, her eyes sparkling with hope, before getting up from the seat, believing that she is safely able to walk. May I come to talk to you again? She asks him. I mean, as long as you come with an adult, I'm happy to talk to you. Izuku tells her. What? Really? Yeah. So do me a favor, will you? Always remember, what happens to you doesn't have to define you. You are the author of your own story, whatever choice you make is yours to make. So don't let the pain get to you, okay? The girl nods her head, slowly walking out of the building before waving goodbye at Izuku, with a smile on her face. Poor girl. Relying on a stranger to give her hope. He says to himself. But I'm sure she'll be fine. After all, she'll make friends who have her back, and triumph over her darkness. Unlike me. He looks over a small window in front of him, taking in the bright evening sun on his skin, before closing the blinds, and shutting the place up. You'll do better than me, kid. I'm sure of it. After approximately an hour, we see Hannabi approach a very lavish home, approximately 2 stories in height, grabbing a key underneath a welcome mat and opening the door. Hello. I'm home. Hannabi called out. Hannabi. A small high-pitched voice calls out. Coming from the corner, we see a small boy, with spiky green hair run towards her, tears streaming down his face, as her latches onto her in a hug. Kakejui. You weren't home for an hour, and I got scared something happened to you. Are you okay? A 4-year-old Kazui says with tears. Yeah, I'm fine Kazui, really. So don't worry. But your knee. Oh, that, don't worry. I had someone fix it up for me. Who? Someone who really helped me out today. She said with a smile. The sun eventually sets, as we see Izuku, now in his apartment, watching some classic trashy reality TV, all while holding a cup of noodles in his hand. Even in my times of need, you cup noodles will always comfort me. He says while eating his meal. Pilot chapter end. Chapter 2, Troubles of Parenting. The Kaminari family appears. Izuku at this point of time, was feeling rather confused. Ever since his meeting with the small blonde child, known to us as Hannabi Bakugo, he had been seeing her in his office building a lot more often. Something while he did say she could do, really annoyed him, as she didn't follow through with the bring an adult portion of his promise. Currently at this moment, Izuku was going through some documents on his desk, while Hannabi was lying on the couch, continuing to play her game as if nothing was going on. Hey kid. Why exactly are you here? Because you said I can mister. Oh, and my name is Hannabi, not kid. Okay, let me rephrase that. Why are you here by yourself, Hannabi? Where is your guardian, or your parents? Well, both sets of my grandparents are on some trip, and both my parents are working at the moment. So how did you get away with coming here on your own? Surely your folks would have organized a babysitter for you. I just told them I was going to my friend's house, and they took the bait. Ha. Well, originally my mother was gonna see if she could get in contact with my uncle. But she gave up after not finding his phone number. Ha. You have an uncle. Then where on earth is he? Don't know. My mum said they haven't spoken since she graduated high school, probably even before that. Ha. Whoever her uncle is, he must have a good reason not to speak with her. Izuku muttered to himself. Well kid, you might as well head to your friend's place. I'm going on a job. A job? Cool. Can I come? Absolutely not. Ha. Why not? Well for one, the clients asked me to come over to their place and see what kind of assistance I can give them. And two, having you come along would only cause me more problems. But I promise I'll be good, please. Izuku becomes rather annoyed by the child's constant whinging, his hand slightly shaking, before he grabs his suit blazer from the back of his seat. All right fine. But if anyone asks, I'm just babysitting you for a friend of mine, got it? Okay. After riding the bus to their destination, Hannabi gives off a rather confused expression, with the house being rather weird in both design and color. Hold on, this is their house. Who designed this place? I know, looks like a child made it. But we can't judge the client's place of residence. All right, I'll let them know that we're here. Izuku heads to the doorbell, pressing it firmly, before stepping back from the door. However, as he waits patiently for the house owner to welcome them in, he hears the sounds of crashing and electric shocks, as well as the cries of a man suffering from immense pain. After what seemed like 30 seconds, the door finally opens to reveal a man with blonde hair wrapped in a bun, a growing beard, and several bags under his eyes. Oh, hey, you must be the quirk consultant my wife called, right? The man asks him. Yep, that's me. Oh, thank God. I was worried you weren't going to come. By the way, who's the kid? Don't worry, she's just here because I need to babysit her. Oh, right. Well, come on in, and please don't mind the mess. The two enter the house, to see several guitars and other instruments on the wall, before they eventually make their way to the dining room, where they sit near the mahogany wood table. So, Mr. Kaminari, right? I take it your profession is in the music industry. Nah, I do play, but working in music is more of my wife's thing. I'm actually a pro hero. A pro hero. Yeah, music is a side gig for my wife when she's not required on the field. Hold on, you're both pro heroes. Yes sir. We're both graduates of UA and became pros very quickly. One thing led to another and we became close. But things had become rather problematic between us. Okay, so what does that have to do with me? If you're looking for a marriage counselor, I'm afraid that is an entirely different department. And no, our marriage is fine, somehow. But lately we've had trouble with our daughter's quirk. When she first manifested it, everything was fine, but lately it started going out of control, and we don't exactly know why. I see. Are you able to bring her here so I can do a quick examination? Oh, sure, no problem. Kyo. Can you please come down here? The doctor needs to see you. Coming down from the stairs, we see a young girl with bright blonde hair staring at our new guests with an expressionless glare. Who are these people, Dad? Kyo, this man is here to help you out with your quirk problem. Oh, okay. After walking down the stairs, she stands in front of Izuku, politely bowing her head, before sitting on her chair. Thank you for this, Doc. It means a lot to us. It's not a problem. To be honest, I was a bit surprised that your daughter bowed her head in respect. Most of the clients' children I met were either pretty aggressive or disrespectful. Well, my wife has a way with teaching kids respect. So this is fairly normal. I see. Well, Kyo, I'm going to explain how this works. I'm going to examine you using your quirk and jot down some notes. Once I do so, I'm going to investigate whether or not this quirk malfunction could be caused by outside factors, okay? Okay, mister. First, can you tell me what your quirk is, and how it can be used? Well, my quirk is called Electric Taser. I can shoot out electricity from these earphone jacks coming out of my ears. Apparently it's supposed to get stronger with time, at least that's what the doctor said. I see. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say your control over it is? Well, before things started to go weird, I'd say an 8. Okay, and when did these problems first start? About 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, got it. Can you give me a demonstration of your quirk, please? Okay. The girl known as Kyo extends her earphone jacks and begins to fire off small bolts of electricity as a makeshift target Izuku had brought with him, while Izuku writes down some notes on his notebook, curious as to what the issue could be. One of the many details being that the attack potency of each lightning bolt isn't actually powerful, with some of them hitting Izuku, but not causing any real damage. This caused him to raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Well, Mr. Kaminari, there does seem to be some sort of issue here. With how powerful your daughter's is alleged to be, it does seem like she's struggling to make a lightning bolt strong enough to cause actual damage. Is there anything you can do, Doc? Well, until we find the cause of this, I won't be able to find a good way to remedy this. Tell me, is there anything that you've changed recently in your daughter's everyday life? Diet perhaps, or even just general day-to-day activities. Not that I can think of. Kyo doesn't really eat any junk food, and she doesn't do anything other than play with her friend, Mirai, after school. I see. Though, there was one thing that happened. Oh. Apparently she got into a fight with a boy at school the other day. A fight? Yeah, she apparently used her quirk on him to try and incapacitate him and ended up getting in trouble for it. I see. He says while he leans back on the chair. What happened after she did that? She did end up exhausted for a couple of days, but nothing too serious. Why? Well, I think I know what is going on. Your daughter could be suffering from a quirk overload. A quirk overload. Now that you mention it, it would make sense. One of my classmates suffered with a quirk overload during our sports festival. But I never expected it to be the case here. Quirk overloads have various effects depending on the quirk. But that could be the reason why your daughter's quirk hasn't been working over these past weeks. I recommend that you keep her out of school for 1 week. If her quirk hasn't gone back to normal by then, I'd recommend going to a doctor and getting some medication. I see, well thank you doc. The door to the house opens, and a purple-haired woman appears with a bag of groceries, with the blonde man reacting in delight. Babe, you're back. Hey Denki. Sorry I'm late. Those housewives weren't exactly well behaved, especially when it came to grocery shopping. Oh, are you the quirk consultant? Your face doesn't match your voice. Well I guess that's fair. I did always have a baby face growing up. Come to think of it, you look familiar. Do you happen to have a sister? Come to think of it, I do see a resemblance to Izumi. Even their hair colors are the same. Hold on a second. It could just be a coincidence. Izuku stammered. Besides there are a ton of people with green hair nowadays. He's definitely true there. Oh shut up, Denki. Then why the hell does he have Bakugo's kid with him? Wait hold on, Bakugo. Izuku turns to Hannabi, where a confused glare meets his own confused eyes. Did I not mention it to you? My name is Hannabi Bakugo, daughter of Katsuki Bakugo. Wait, hold on a minute, why didn't I see it before? Those red eyes, that ash blonde hair. Of course this is Bakugo's kid. But wait that means oh god, this girl is my niece. Izuku thought to himself. Now, exactly why do you have Bakugo's kid with you? Babe, he said he was babysitting her. No, I want to hear it from him. Izuku's mind was starting to panic. Despite the validity of the babysitting story, it seemed that things were gonna take a dark turn if he didn't make a smart move. So, going against everything his body was currently trying to tell him, he opened his mouth, and explained himself. I'm her uncle. Huh. That's right. I'm her mother's brother. I was asked by her grandmother to pick her up from a friend's house and take her home, but I forgot I had this job, so I was babysitting her just until we got home. That's my explanation. Both Denki and Kyuka were understandably perplexed by this. Through the 10+ years they knew Izumi, they never knew she had a brother, let alone one that looked exactly like her. This caused the two of them to just accept his story, and stay at the table as Hannabi and Izuku made their way out of the home. I'm sorry about my folks, Mr. Kyo said while bowing. Oh, it's fine, really. Though, it did catch me off guard that they knew my sister, let alone her child. Hey, Hannabi, right? Yeah. You seem cool, maybe I can ask my parents for a play date with you sometime. Kyo told her. Wait, really? Yeah. The only real person I play with is Mirai, so having another playmate could make things fun. Sounds like a plan. Oh, and Mr. Thank you for helping me today. Hey, don't worry. It's my job to help those that need help. You just take things easy, okay? With a nod of her head, Kyo waves farewell to Izuku and Hannabi, as they made their way to the nearest bus stop, and made their way home. So was what you said true? Are you really my uncle? I wouldn't have said it if it wasn't true. It just SCKS that I didn't connect the dots sooner. Do you hate my mum? She asked him. Well, she certainly was a pain in my butt, so I guess. Do you hate me? Huh. You know, for being mum's daughter. Come on kid, there's no reason to think like that. What your parents did to me has nothing to do with you. Huh. All of that happened when we were kids. There was nothing you could do to stop that, so you don't have to take the blame for their mistakes. After all, the sins of the parents shouldn't be forced upon their child. Oh okay. The bus ride home is a rather silent one, with Hannabi still coming into terms with the information she had just learned. But eventually, she learns to live with it, and merely smiles, knowing that she has another person she can rely on. Thank you for looking after me today. I had fun, even if it was just you doing your job. That's not a problem, kiddo. You sure you can get home on your own? Yeah, I'll be fine. See you tomorrow. Wait tomorrow. Well, things are certainly going to be interesting. He began to walk home, staring over at the sunset, where the bright yellow glow flickered in his eyes, making him completely enamored by the sight. So appealing, I wish this moment could last forever. A small smile forms on his face, with him continuing to walk to his home, heading down a shortcut he had used many times in the past. That was, until he feels someone put a cloth over his mouth and nose. He begins to violently try to get out of the mysterious person's grasp, breathing heavily, as his eyes begin to slowly close. Sleep. Izuku's eyes close and sleeps for what felt like a while. The road to his destination was a bumpy one, his mind not filled with dreams or nightmares, but questions. Who chloroformed him to sleep? Why did they chloroform him to sleep? So many possible reasons behind this were flooding his mind, until he began to wake up. Lying on the ground, inside of a dark echoey room. Hello. Izuku yelled out. Anyone here? He looked around the room, seeing nothing but darkness, his mind quickly getting annoyed by this. Okay, where the hell am I? Izuku said to himself. Suddenly, loud footsteps begin to fill the dark room, with Izuku looking all around himself to look for any sign of a person nearby. Izuku Yagi. 28 years of age, and a moderately successful quirk consultant. Impressive, despite your quirkless status. A voice speaks out. Ha! Brother of the #1 hero, Izumi Yagi, you were always forced into her shadow, unable to change your circumstances and was stuck with the decision of living a life of mediocrity. Okay, seriously. I don't need to deal with some stupid villain monologue. Izuku says out loud. So just turn on the DMN lights and show yourself. After a few seconds of silence and darkness, the lights to the room suddenly burn bright, and Izuku witnessed the reveal of a cathedral-sized room in front of him. The people around him wearing a brownish frock, and a white monastic scapular with cowl, on which a Canterbury-like cross emblem is embroidered on the front. Their faces, hidden by a dark gray mask, as they put one arm across their chests and one across their backs. Izuku looks up to see the emblem embroidered on a large banner above, with a singular man standing below it. His skin, a luminescent light blue color, with a shaved head of dark blue hair, a goatee mustache and a pair arrow-shaped earrings pierced into his 2 ears. Welcome Izuku Yagi. I am the leader of this organization. You may call me Flecht. The leader of Hannabi. Chapter End. Chapter 3, Battle of Ideology, Izuku vs Hannabi. Izuku stares at the man who called himself Flecht, his mind thinking of all sorts of things, such as who in their right mind would name their child Flecht. Or why was it that he was here? But Izuku had no real time to dwell on those things. All he could do was stand his ground. Hannabi. What kind of a name is that? What's with all of these people dressing up in poorly done cosplay? Are they trying to look like shitty knights or something? More importantly, why did they kidnap me? Izuku thought to himself. Okay, let's think about this rationally, Izuku. Obviously they didn't want to kill you, otherwise they would have done so already, so what gives? The blue man, now known as Flecht, turns his gaze to Izuku, as the followers around him begin to kneel. I apologize for how my followers brought you here. While I would have preferred to ask you to come here, we could not risk discovery. Okay, so typical bad guy stuff, got it. Flecht, hearing this, closes his eyes, rubbing his brows with his fingers in a controlled frustration. Mr. Yagi, you seem to misunderstand. Hannabi is not a villain organization. We are a group of individuals who believe that the human race needs saving. Ha! Saving. From what? Flecht took a brief pause, allowing the lights from above to soak his blue skin, before beginning to speak once more. From the disease that is a quirk. Immediately hearing this, Izuku began to zone out, not paying attention to the nonsense this man was spouting. We at Hannabi believe that the human race will be the end of mankind as a result of the quirk singularity doomsday theory. This disease, is an infection. He finishes with hatred in his voice. An infection that has forced onto our kind. A plague which has only brought about tragedy and suffering. This blight can no longer be allowed to continue. OCRP. It's another one of these cults that believe quirks are the worst thing to come into existence, not that he's wrong. If superhuman powers never came into existence, we would probably be taking interstellar trips by now, or even inhabiting entirely new planets. And if quirks never existed, a lot of the catastrophes that happened would have likely never occurred. Izuku thought to himself. Even still, what he's spouting on about is just entirely theoretical. There's not enough information to say that quirks could be the end of the human race. He continued to look around the room, seeing no real exit for him to go to. He merely continued to stay in the position he was in. So, Flecht was it. If you say that quirks are really going to be the end of humanity, then how exactly would you solve this issue? 'Cause I doubt spouting on and on like some sort of broken record is your plan. Unfortunately, Hannabi does not have access to the quirk erasure drag that Overhaul once made around a decade ago, nor do we have someone with the quirk called All for One. So in order for mankind to be freed from the curse that is quirks, is to exterminate all those who have been tainted by them. These words made Izuku's eyes widen in confusion. Exterminate. Was he insane? How would a mere organization of this size even be able to accomplish something like that? But those questions did not matter to Izuku. He had to get out of there, and tell someone. Because what could he even do to stop them? Okay, assuming that you do have the resources to exterminate those with quirks, why exactly have you brought me here? Like you said before, I was born quirkless. Ah, but that is exactly why you are important to us. You being quirkless means that you are one of those chosen to be saved. You are one of the only pure humans left in this world. As such, your presence here is greatly valued to Hannabi. That still doesn't explain why I'm here. Well, isn't it obvious? We want you to join our ranks in Hannabi. What? Izuku muttered in confusion. Once we purge the human race of all quirks, we'll need people to establish a new world order, to repopulate the human race. And you more than meet the qualifications to join Hannabi. Flecht says to him. Look around you, these people are your brothers and sisters that have felt your pain, all because of the disease known casually as quirks. If we exterminate the plague once and for all, then humanity will go back to the way it was before, the way it should have stayed. After Flecht begins to calm himself from his rant, he approaches Izuku, putting his hand out, while towering over him. Join us, Yagi. And together, we will pave the way to saving the human race. Izuku stared at the man, his eyes bearing no emotional expression, merely being covered by the bangs of his hair. You know, I always did get sick and tired of the way life has been treating me. No prospect for a wife and child, no real career goals, I'm just done with everything. So yes, I'll gladly join you. He says while grabbing Flecht's hand. Is what I would say if I was such a dumb but you bstrd. Izuku goes to try and sucker punch Flecht's face, but suddenly feels a stinging pain on his left cheek, as his attack is reflected back at him. What the he dash, before he could finish his sentence, 2 arrows suddenly shoot through both his legs, causing him to drop to the ground. He grovels in pain, as red water begins to spurt out of his body, leaving him unable to move. And here I thought you were a smart man. What a shame. Flecht says in disappointment. How can you go and betray your quirkless brothers and sisters, people who have suffered just like you? Izuku begins to chuckle, while doing his best to keep his body from losing too much water. You know, had you asked me a decade ago to join you, I might have accepted your proposal and become one of your followers. Yeah, you're right. My life has been shitty since I didn't have a quirk. But unlike the rest of you, I didn't let my frustrations on the world get to me. Izuku yelled out loud. His words slightly startled some of the members, as if reaching out to them in his own way, but they continued to stand their ground, and aimed their weapons at Izuku. I didn't let this society turn me into a hollow shell searching for a purpose. I adapted to my situation, something the rest of you should have done. Izuku continues to yell out. And besides, you said that you're going to exterminate all those who have quirks. Well, even though I hate her parents, I have a niece who doesn't deserve to die at the hands of some stupid cult fixated on the quirk doomsday theory. What kind of a uncle would I be if I just joined a bunch of cowards like you wanting to kill her? He finishes with a cocky expression. Fleck stares down at the young man with an expression of annoyance on his face. You dare call the members of Hannabi cowards? You wretched scum. He plants his foot on Izuku's head, keeping him on the ground while the one who shot the 2 arrows at him lands into the back of his knees, screaming out in pain in the process. You may be one of the pure humans, but we cannot have an insolent fool like you in the New World Order. Barrows, end his miserable existence painlessly. As you wish, Mr. Flecht. As Izuku is about to be put to death at the hands of Barrows, who draws her bow and arrow above his head, ready to put him down like a dog, his mind begins to flood with memories of his past. Memories he had kept buried in his subconscious as to ensure he would never live through them again. In his memories, we see a 15-year-old Izuku, walking to school one day as he saw countless billboards displaying events from what looked like the first-year UA sports festival. In particular, the fight between Katsuki Bakugo and his sister, Izumi Yagi. Man, those two are really going at it, huh? A student wearing the same uniform spoke. No kidding. His friend said back. Those two were basically destined to become heroes. If only we could have been as cool. This comment for some reason tore through Izuku's heart, feeling a sharp pain in his chest. Yeah, for real. If we were half as cool as them, we'd be famous heroes. The pain continued to fester in his heart, until he accidentally caught the attention of the 2 students. Ah, I'm sorry for my behavior. Excuse me. He says, walking past them. Dude, who was that? I think that was the quirkless kid at our school. Izuku Yagi, I think. Wait, doesn't one of the contestants have the same family name? Man, talk about a letdown. Izuku continued to walk the sidewalk, pushing past the many civilians walking the other direction. Izuku Yagi had always been an isolated boy. In a world where meta abilities determined one's value, Izuku had always been at the bottom of the barrel. He had learned quickly that dreams as ambitious as being a hero were only possible if one had the power to back it up. As he got older, and became more aware, he made it his life's mission to suppress that feeling in his heart forever, in an attempt to move on with his life. But that painful feeling in his heart never went away. Instead, it only grew bigger and bigger, causing an abrupt change in his mind and body. Unaware to himself, Izuku had actually been misdiagnosed. Whether it was by intention or completely by accident, Izuku's quirk had remained unused, and as a result, had awakened in a strange way. Using his emotions as a catalyst, his power slowly expanded, day by day, year by year. However, there is a limit to how much power can build up in a given moment before leaking out and going wild. And now, as he is about to be killed, an emotion is swirling around inside of him, going past the limit. Progress toward Izuku's explosion. 100% Izuku's eyes began to glow wildly, as the ground beneath him began to crack apart, and the rubble shot into the sky, pushing away all those who were holding him to the ground. His eyes narrowed, as he was feeling an emotion he was all too familiar with. That emotion is rage. Flecht falls to the ground in disbelief, as the once quirkless man he thought was a pure human had now shown off his latent meta ability, his quirk. What? How is this possible? Your file said you were quirkless. How? How? But Izuku didn't say a word to Flecht. His body had been covered by what appeared to be an ethereal, dark substance, with only his eyes, bearing no pupils or iris lighting up the room. In a swift motion, the entity grabbed Flecht up by the collar, and began staring into his soul, with the villain wailing in panic, Mr. Flecht. Barrows screams out. She attempts to strike him in the head, by shooting an arrow behind him, but this is stopped immediately, thanks to the presence of a strong barrier. What the hell? Barrows yells out. Izuku in this state, merely stared at the archer, before manipulating the arrows and firing them back at her, narrowly missing. TCH, Leviathan, Rogan, Serpenters, Citaro, on me. Barrows cries out. 5 people suddenly appear around Izuku, anxious to fight the now enemy of Hannabi, while activating their quirks. They quickly charge at their foe, simultaneously attacking him with each of their quirks, hoping to end the young man's life. But to their surprise, their attacks have no effect on the barrier, and are pushed back violently by a sudden shockwave, knocking the group out. I see. In the end, you're nothing more than one of those diseased humans. Flecht mutters. In order to achieve salvation for humanity, I must end you here. As Flecht goes to activate his support item, Izuku appears in front of him, landing a powerful punch that gets reflected back at Izuku, who manages to avoid the devastating impact thanks to his barrier. Seeing that any conventional attack wouldn't work, Izuku began to generate large amounts of electricity, and aimed it at Flecht, all while simultaneously amplifying the gravity around him, to push him down onto the ground. What? He's overwhelming my quirk. Impossible. I can't reflect it. His control of his quirk began to weigh down on him, as the electricity began to run throughout his entire body. However, the ceiling above begins to crack and break apart, with falling debris violently crashing to the ground beside them. What are you? What in the world are you? But Izuku continued to ignore Flecht, as his power continued to spike and overload. His energy seeping into Flecht's mind, not granting him any sort of power, but overwhelming him with an illusion that felt so real, it caused Flecht to cry out in agony, and lose all of his strength. He weakly muttered something to Izuku's new transformation. You are the one who will doom us all. Your quirk, it has consumed you, taken hold of you, become its own entity. Soon your quirk will destroy everything, all of mankind, and will turn this world into a ball of fire. His body goes limp, as exhaustion from the pain takes hold, and the entity begins to walk away, not giving Izuku any sort of autonomy. However, after approximately 1 hour, Izuku woke up from his exhaustion, lying on the ground underneath a light pole, confusing the man. Where the hell am I? Izuku muttered to himself. Did I pass out while walking? He tried to remember exactly how he got here, doing his best to access the memories in his mind, but couldn't find anything to assist him. DMN. I must have not eaten anything all day. My head is killing me. Welp, better get home as quick as possible and have some dinner. Otherwise this could end up being a problem. Having completely forgotten the events of the fight, Izuku continued to make his way home, his injuries having unknowingly been healed. Back at their base, however, we hear the sounds of approaching footsteps enter the main area of the headquarters, as we see a boy, roughly in his mid-teens based on height, with their hair being black as midnight, and a mixture of purple. The young man lets out a loud whistle, impressed by the state of the damage. Wow, now this is some damage. I didn't think that guy had the capability to go this far. The young man comments. Still, it was sad I had to watch from a distance and not fight him myself. I bet he would have been an awesome person to challenge with all that power. He continued to walk over the many unconscious bodies before him, making his way towards Flecht, who was groaning in pain due to the rubble. Mikumo. Don't just stand there, help me. No, I don't think I will. What? Why, you're a member of Hannabi. You're supposed to obey my command. See, here's the thing. This whole extermination of quirk shtick you had going on, it wouldn't have worked in the end. All plans have their flaws, and this one had many. I only joined you because I got bored. But in the end, even the strongest of your allies couldn't take down a single man. Why would I obey such a weak leader? He aims his finger at Flecht's body, a small ball of energy forming at the tip. Mikumo. Stop this, please. We can still create the ideal world, we can still eliminate the Chu Wraither beam. The boy mutters to himself. Fleck's body becomes consumed by the beam, eventually turning into nothing but ash, while the boy begins to walk out of the headquarters. Izuku Yagi, that power you displayed, it's extraordinary. I hope we see each other again soon. Chapter end. Chapter 4, Corruption of Youth Hero Academies, schools designed to shape and mold the future heroes of Japan, at least, that is what they were intended to do. In reality, some people's souls were just too stubborn to be easily changed. Some were just too high on their power trip to realize that. And to deal with such a thing, some chose to oppose them. At this moment in time, such a thing was happening, when we see a group of young men wearing shiketsu uniforms lying face flat on the ground while staring up at a small group of UA students. The guys from UA are crazy strong. One of the boys yells out, "You must be UA High's Kota the Water Dragon." A boy named Sho said with hatred. Seriously. And here I thought shiketsu students were meant to be more prestigious than us. What gives you the right to go and harass my classmate like that? Oh, and for the record, if you think we're getting exhausted, I hate to tell you this, but my buddies and I were just getting warmed up. One of the boys, who begins to shake in fear, ends up standing up out of pure adrenaline. Quick, somebody get Tamashiro. Ha! Tamashiro. After a bit of time, a sound is heard behind the group of shiketsu boys, and what ultimately happens afterwards, is a devastating sight. The young man known as Kota the Water Dragon was seen lying up against the wall, red and unconscious. That's Tama for you. Sho tells them. Yeah, but isn't this kind of overkill? A boy named Takuto comments. It had to be done. A young voice speaks out. They have the nerve to stand up to me. If you show a pack of idiots like these you're out of their league, they'll suddenly bow down to you like completely different people. The same way all of you guys did. The person revealed to have caused this damage is a young blonde-haired boy, with spiky teeth and a few black orbs, orbiting around him. This was Tamashiro, shadow leader of Shiketsu High School. Not to mention, it's never a bad idea to have a bunch of fools indebted to me. Be it through power or through people, I'm going to take advantage of everything I can. After all, I'm the main character of this world. Izuku Yagi at this moment in time, was feeling tired. For whatever reason, he felt like his head was splitting wide open. Like something had happened to him which caused something to happen. But he couldn't figure out why it was that caused this to occur. Damn it. Here I thought a good night's sleep would help with these headaches, but this is just getting ridiculous. He felt sluggish, as if at any moment his entire body would just suddenly shut down. But he continued to persist, going over to the kitchen counter and getting a glass of water from his tap, while the TV began to play the news. And that was you with the weather. In other news, police last night found the remains of what appeared to be a secret base, established by the mysterious international terrorist organization known as Hannabi. Izuku turned his head to see the television. Ha! He muttered. While police won't give us the names of the members that were detained, based on the damage at the scene, many officers are speculating that an unknown assailant was the cause of this latest attack. More information coming to you live. Izuku stood still for a short while, before noticing that his glass cup was already full of water and quickly turning off the tap. Why did I get this sudden sense of déjà vu? Whatever, I've got more important things to worry about. WOAH. Due to a piece of clothing that was lying on the ground in front of him, he slipped onto his back, staring up at the ceiling while the glass of water was falling on top of him. No, CRP. He puts his hand out to try and stop the glass cup from smashing onto his face, but after 10 seconds of waiting, no glass ever smashed onto his face. Instead, what he was met with was something mind-boggling. The cup and water were floating above him, with a small green aura emanating around it. What the hell? What's going on? Progress toward Izuku's explosion. 21% Izuku, being reasonably confused by this sudden development, decides to make his way to the nearest hospital, where the doctor begins to assess the situation being described to him. So, let me get this straight. You were diagnosed as quirkless 24 years ago, and have been living as such. But then suddenly you were able to make a glass cup full of water float above you. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Well, given this log on your medical records by a Dr. Garaki, I would say you're telling the truth. Right, but my only question is, how did something like this happen? Well, have you made any contact with anyone who possessed All for One, or even All for One himself? Perhaps they gave you these powers. Of course not. What kind of a moron would do that? Well, either way, it's possible you were given a misdiagnosis. Dr. Garaki was a busy man after all, so perhaps he accidentally switched the X-rays when you were being tested. Okay, now that's a bit of a stretch in my opinion. Izuku says with doubt. So what, you want me to have another X-ray? That would be the best course of action. But unfortunately, the X-ray machine is having some repairs done on it, so I'll have the hospital call you at the earliest time you can come in. Fine, whatever. Izuku said with a heavy sigh. In the meantime, try your best to get accustomed to your new quirk. It may be difficult, but growing an understanding of it could be beneficial to you. Yeah, I'll keep a note of that. Izuku began to walk out of the hospital with a rather blank expression on his face. Despite now having a quirk, he didn't feel excited, nor did he feel joy, he just felt hollow. After his checkup, Izuku went to office, where he went about his usual business of dealing with clients. Until he heard the loud footsteps of Hannabi appear out of nowhere a few hours later. Have no fear, uncle, because I am here. Oh, hey Hannabi. He said blankly. Aw, come on. What was with that reaction? Well, today's been a boring day, so it's not like I'm particularly excited. But wait, it's lunch time, why are you here? Shouldn't you still be at school? Well, Hannabi. He said with a sigh. You can't just cut classes like that. Attendance is very important for your school record. Yeah, well, school was boring. That may be the case, but it's important that you keep up your education. Better to keep your options open than putting all your eggs in one basket. You got it. Yes, uncle. Hannabi said with a low tone. By the way, what are you doing? Nothing really interesting. Clients are a bit low, so I have a bit of free time to myself. Cool, that means we can play my new favorite game. Ha. New game. Yeah. She rummages through her school bag, and pulls out a red box full of numbered card. While Izuku was rather confused by this, he spotted the title on the box, and begun to seemingly have memories of the past, memories about the card game. That card game being Uno. Uno. Yeah, I saw a bunch of kids in my class play this and I asked Mom and Dad to get me a box. Wanna play? I am sorry, Hannah. Perhaps another time. Aw, come on uncle, why don't you wanna play? Well, that's because I'm busy uncle, you just said you weren't. Fair, I guess. Great. Then we can play. Izuku, despite his resistance, began to play the game with Hannabi. To say he was worried was an overstatement. Despite having gotten many cards as a result of +4s and +2s, he seemed to rather enjoy the game, unlike the times he's played in high school, where people would tag team to give him as many cards as possible to ensure he didn't win. Eventually, Hannabi gets to her last card, where she displays a cocky smile on her face. Tough luck, uncle. Uno. She says, putting down a blue, hee. Oh, don't think this is over yet. What do you mean? I've got one card left, uncle. You're about to lose to your little niece. Oh, I wouldn't be so sure of that, Hannabi. You're going down. He says, putting a swap hands card down. Impossible. I thought I took those cards out of the deck. Foolishness, Hannabi, foolishness. Now, hand over your card, and here, you can have my cards. After exchanging the decks between the two, Hannabi was left infuriated at the circumstances. Damn it, uncle. You had 10 cards left, and they're all green. Did you really think I would swap away a good deck? I had planned this from the very beginning. Since the current card is a red 7, that means you have no choice but to pick up. Meanwhile, I'll win with just this one CA-. Upon looking down at the card, he is mortified to discover that it was a green H-ha. Booyah. We both have greens. Yep, so we're both screwed. 1 point for Hannabi. Now, I will begin to draw until I get a card that matches. Upon doing so, she pulls out a red 5 and places it down on the pile, all while giving a cocky smile at her uncle. Damn it, she's actually holding her own. No matter, I'll just simply grab a red 4 and win instantly. He pulls out another card from the deck, and, to his annoyance, it was not the red 4 he had hoped for. Another green, he picked up another one. Yellow, tough luck uncle. At this point you'll be drawing for Rev - plus, huh? I got a +4, Hannabi. Now, tremble before my awesomeness. He said, trying to be menacing. Uncle, what are you doing? Hannabi said with confusion. Oh, sorry. I was, just exaggerating. Oh, don't worry uncle. Dad tries to be scary too. Izuku places his +4 down, much to Hannabi's annoyance, before Izuku places his yellow 4 down. Soon, after a bit of maneuvering, and Hannabi forgetting what cards he had, Izuku won the game. What? You won? Yep. Sure did. Nah, you cheated somehow. Nope. Won fair and square. Well, whatever. I'll win next time. She said while stomping her foot on the floor. She begins to slightly shed tears, which causes Izuku to slightly worry. Hey. Don't cry. How about this? I'll buy you some ice cream if you promise to not cry. Okay. After convincing the young girl to not throw a tantrum, we see the two walking on the sidewalk, with Hannabi constantly repeating, ice cream, to herself. If I didn't know any better, I'd say she played me by pretending to cry. Izuku thought to himself. Nah, it's fine. I was getting tired of that office anyway. It's a nice change of pace to get out for once. But as the two were walking, a small group of young men wearing a UA uniform is seen walking on the other side, with Kota looking down at the ground with a rather scornful expression on his face. Yo Kota, don't feel too bad about what those Shiketsu guys did to us. They had to bring out their strongest member of their year to even damage you. A boy named Tsuyoshi said to him. Yeah, how lame do they have to be to do that? Obviously they just think they're strong because they have that Tamashiro guy. A boy named Ikiku adds. It doesn't matter. If I can't even beat that guy, then how can I be the kind of hero like Green Empress? Oh yeah, you mentioned she saved you when you were a kid. But still, what does beating him have to do with being a hero like her? It means I'll be strong enough to handle anyone. Well, I guess we can always ask the teachers to help us grow strong. Hold on. Kota tells his friends. Kota turns his head back slightly to see Hannabi, before seeing the man holding her hand. Huh? What's up? Kota. That guy, he's with Green Empress's child. Hold on. How the heck do you know that? I met her daughter when my auntie and I were having dinner with them a few weeks back. But why is she with that guy? Could he be, hey you? Ikiku yells out. Ikiku, you idiot. Kota screams out in his mind. Huh? What's your deal, kid? The better question is, why are you with the #1 hero's kid? Huh? Wait. What are you trying to insinuate? I'm trying to say that you're some weirdo trying to do something gross to Green Empress kid. To say Izuku was grossed out by this implication was an understatement. He could understand where the kid was coming from, but even with that in mind, Izuku could feel his stomach begin to twist as a result. Waha! Ha! Dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Izuku screamed out. You seriously come to that conclusion after looking at us for about 3 seconds. But oh for the love of, this is my niece. The 3 boys stare in embarrassment, before over-exaggeratingly bowing at him. We're very sorry, sir. They said in unison. I'm sorry, who are you two? Friends of his or something? Why yeah. We're sorry about Ikaku. Tsuyoshi says to him. He can be quite the idiot sometimes. Yeah, well, your idiot of a friend needs to control himself. Especially when he makes accusations like that. Kota stares down at the ground for a little while, before lifting his head up. So you're Big Sis's brother, huh? She never mentioned you whenever we talked. Kota said to him. Big Sis. Wait, don't tell me that what you actually call her. Well, yeah. She saved me, so why wouldn't I? Give me a break. Last thing I need is some punk kid calling Izumi Big Sis. Izuku says with air quotes. Come on, Hannabi, we've still gotta get to that ice cream shop. Okay. W8. How about I offer to pay for it? You know, to owe you for what my friend did. What, you can't be serious, Kota. What if this guy actually is a Ikaku says to him. If that's the case, I'll handle it. You two just go on home. We'll play video games later tonight. Oh, you got it, boss. The 2 boys head home, leaving Kota with his idol's brother and child, before we see them sitting inside a local ice cream shop. You know, it's kind of bizarre, seeing that Big Sis has a brother. Okay, please stop calling her that in my presence. It's starting to get weird. Oh, right. It's weird that Green Empress has a brother. Yep, I think that every day. Kota remained silent for a little while, before speaking again. So if you're Green Empress's brother, that means you must have a really strong queer don't have one. Izuku said, lying. Wait, seriously? You don't have one? Nope, been like that my whole life. I see. Must be strange being the brother of the #1 hero. You get used to it. Izuku tells him. Especially since she's been trained for the role by her father. Oh, right, makes sense why you aren't fazed by it. So, how do you want me to address you? Just Yagi. Alright, Yagi. I want to apologize again for what my friend said about you. It wasn't really cool of him to accuse you like that. That's right, Kota. Hannabi said out loud. No one ever talks CRP about my uncle and teacher. Hold on, teacher. More like a life coach. Izuku responded. Alright. So what happened to you? Your face is alright, but your uniform is all red and scuffed. Oh, right. Some punks at Shiketsu have been harassing us and beat us up really bad. Luckily Eri healed us before class. Wait, Big Sis Eri. Yep. Scolded me afterwards, but I don't mind. She means well. What? She your girlfriend or something? What? I'm assuming what I said was right then. And no dude. She's just being nice to me, that's all. Besides, if I were to spring a confession out, it would only cause her trouble. Izuku gave the boy sympathy for his mental struggle. He too was once in love, many times even. From the few times he developed a crush in high school, to some flings he attempted to create during his years afterwards, Izuku was no stranger to the conflicts of love. Well, you don't know that. For all you know, she could just be waiting for you to make the first move. I mean, at least that's how I view things. Us guys often flood our minds with countless scenarios such as what if she rejects me, or what if she mistakes my advances or gets weirded out. Eventually we tend to not make any move because we're too afraid to. I guess I can see your point. Look, don't take my advice as fact, but try to be more confident about these things. Go up to her, speak to her in private, in person or by text, tell her how you feel and wait for the result. Believe me, the best thing you can do is at least tell her how you feel. Otherwise, if she does get with someone else, you're gonna beat yourself up over it. Kota contemplated the words that came from Izuku's mouth. A sense of ease began to flood his system, before his mind began to clear up. "Thank you for the dash," he said before his phone rang. He picked up his phone and opened up a message that appeared, causing him to contort his face in anger. The message in question was the same Shiketsu students grabbing his two unconscious friends by the hair, with the message, "If you don't want your friends to suffer, then come to face your punishment. Come to this location." Kota wanted to yell out, but his mind tempered his rage, with him simply getting up from the booth. "I'm sorry, Mr. Yagi. Something's just come up. I have to get going now. You and your niece have a safe walk home," he said while running outside. "Hey, wait. You dropped your phone." But Kota did not hear his cry. His mind was too fixated on the situation to care that he had suddenly dropped his phone. So he ran, and ran, until he got to the location and saw the group of boys laughing amongst themselves. "Aw, look who decided to show up," Sho said mockingly. "Why did you attack my buddies like that?" he said in a cold tone. "Are you that dense? Come on, Water Dragon, do you really think we'd let you defeat us like that and not get our revenge? It was kind of a coincidence that we ran into these two weaklings, but hey, at least beating these losers brought you out." Kota remained silent, his mind having a harder time tempering his rage. Sure, he was considered a delinquent by UA standards, but he had honor, he had heart, he made the makings of a hero. "I think it's time I remind you just why exactly you had to call Tamashiro in the first place." "Huh? What was that Kota shot Sho with a concentrated beam of water, knocking him into a nearby tree, while the shadows of his hair covered his eyes. "You wanna know where I got that name? Kota the Water Dragon. Actually, why don't I give you a demonstration?" he said with a smile. "Get him!" Takuto cried out. The many Shiketsu students charged towards him, attempting to overpower the young man with all their might. But sadly, one by one, each of the boys were taken out, not just by his quirk, but from the martial arts that he had learned over the years. Overall, the battle between the 20 Shiketsu students and Kota ended in total victory. Somebody call Tama," one boy said in exhaustion. I already called him. It's been a while now. Is he late because he's flirting with some girl again? Shiketsu's reputation really has gone under if this is what they're producing," Kota said mockingly. "Now, I'm taking my buddies home, and fixing them up." But, a sudden bag being thrown at him stops him suddenly, with the young man turning back to see Tamashiro, with a look of annoyance on his face. "Guess you've become more of a gorilla than a demon. Still, you've caused quite the ruckus." "Tama, you're here!" Takuto cried out. Tamashiro began to approach Kota, his aura completely being held back by the young man's annoyance and frustration at the situation in front of him. "I thought that beating you to a pulp would give you some sort of clue to your place in this world. But for whatever reason, you seem to think that you can challenge my authority, throw mud in my face and get away with it. Look dude, whatever issue you have with me, you can blame your lackeys for that. They're the ones that beat up my buddies. Hey, don't you dare speak to our shadow leader like that." Takuto yells out. "Takuto!" Tamashiro says with a deep voice. "You and Sho's usefulness as my right-hand men are starting to drastically decline, so keep your mouth shut, would you? Otherwise I will have to cut you out." "Ha!" No wait a second, a sudden black orb shot towards the boy, hitting him in the stomach and causing him to fall to the ground. "You've put my reputation on the line here, Takuto, so just go to sleep. And that's why you'll always be alone. Because you use your classmates like tools instead of teammates. Something tells me you should take a lesson from Mr. Bakugo or 2-Dynamite is nothing more than a loser who could have been great had he not grown weak. He had to rely on people to gain strength. Meanwhile, I only need people to show off my authority." 3 black orbs suddenly appeared behind the young man, and shot out towards Kota, who was barely able to dodge such attack, before being met by Tamashiro's fist to his chin. I'm not given the spotlight because I am the star, I am the star because I take the spotlight, he said with another series of attacks. Blow after blow, Kota was feeling his mind become more and more blurry. That is why I am the strongest. The three binging ball attack him from all sides, before his face gets hit by Tamashiro's fist. That is why I am the main character of this world, he muttered, as Kota fell to the ground. Hey! A deep voice yelled out. Tamashiro turns behind him to see Izuku, who was heavily breathing as a result of running. The boy merely looked at the man with confusion and disinterest. And just what are you doing here, old man? Tamashiro called out. Old man. That's a bit harsh. I'm only in my late 20s. Doesn't matter to me. My only question is, what are you doing here? Why, Yagi, how did you dash? He said before fainting. You dropped your phone when you were frantically running. Also put a password on it next time, you idiot. You're way too carefree with this stuff. Ha! Yagi. So that's your family name. Now that I think about it, you do seem familiar. Kota, I take it this is the guy that kicked your butt before. Yeah, that's right. This idiot has caused me to have to resort to such crude methods of control. I mean, he was trying to undermine my authority in this territory. Why are you so concerned for him? He's a UA student after all, he should be able to take the punishment. Doesn't work like that, kid. He may be a hero trainee, but he's still a child. Aw, how cute. Seems this old man has an important place for you in his heart. Kota's body began to suddenly glow a bright green aura, as he and his friends began to float back towards Izuku. Okay, that was a bit harder than I thought. Seriously. Tamashiro, despite having insulted him beforehand, becomes shocked at this discovery. Wait, that quirk, that hair, his last name. Don't tell me he's Dash. Alright, listen up, you little parasite. Tamashiro was speechless. Some civilian called him a parasite. Such an insult. But, he was too fixated on the fact that this person was identical to the hero he admired and aspired to be. Izumi. You may have a very powerful and interesting quirk. But the fact is that you're using this ability like an idiot. Territory control this, authority and control that. Come on, you're just a classic example of a wannabe gang leader. Ha. So how about you be a good student, and just stop using your quirk to hurt other students? Progress toward Izuku's explosion, 43% chapter end. Chapter 5, A Crushing Reality. Tamashiro stared at the man with a look of confusion and annoyance. He looked like a male version of his idol, and yet, he could not comprehend the situation. Why was this man scolding him? He was just trying to protect what he thought was important, what he thought was special. His reputation as Shiketsu's strongest student. As if I would listen to some random adult's orders. Now, if you don't mind, I need to teach Kota a lesson. Yeah, nice try, you little gremlin. You know, you may be a hero in training, but all of those prospects could disappear if I just so happened to tell the police what happened. You would seriously rat me out. Me. A hero in training. Don't be an idiot. Who do you think the police would listen to? Me, a hero in training, or you, just a weak and helpless civilian? These particular words struck a chord within Izuku's mind. Sure, he could tell the police about this, but without any evidence, there's be no way they would take him seriously. It was a shame Tsukachi retired. He could have been helpful in this situation. Tell me something. Your last name, your hair, your facial features. They look identical to Green Empress. You a relative or something? Or are you just some fan trying to be her? Okay, first of all, I'm her brother. Second, that's a gross assumption. Why would anyone even try to look like her willingly? You dare insult the #1 hero like that? She's the strongest hero to ever live. The bravest, and most popular hero of all time. Jeez. Did I really act like that when I was a teenager? Talk about an embarrassing reminder. Izuku thought to himself. Tamashiro broke out of his annoyed state before scoffing. You may be her brother, but you don't hold a candle of strength compared to her. You're a weakling, unlike me. So it's time I remind you about the pecking order between us. Flinging towards Izuku, one of Tamashiro's binging balls zooms into the man's stomach, causing him to spit out a large amount of saliva. What the hell? Where did that thing come from? Take this. Tamashiro yells out. He attempts to hit the man from all sides, with 3 binging balls zooming from the top, left and right, while Tamashiro attacks from the front. However, when he does land the strike, he is surprised to see his attacks not hitting him. Instead, being met with a barrier Izuku had made. Okay, that was a close one. Kid, you better cut this out before you do some serious damage. What? But how, kid, whatever these balls are, they are starting to get annoying, so cut it oh dash, but Tamashiro sped away from him, using his binging ball as footing to allow him to move as super fast speeds. What the hell? Does this kid really think such movements will help him? Geez, all this trouble just to stop one kid. What a drag. Tamashiro continued to speed around him, eventually stopping at a far enough distance, before shooting a barrage of binging ball towards him. Though, this proved rather ineffective, as most of them were deflected or destroyed thanks to Izuku's barrier. What's wrong? Is the great brother of Green Empress not gonna fight back? How stupid are you? He says as he sends out more binging ball. Do you think some stupid barrier proves your superiority to me? I am Tamashiro, #1 student of Shiketsu High, and the soon-to-be #1 hero. I'm special, and I'm better than others, especially Yo Dash, will you shut up already? Who cares if you have powers, that doesn't make you special. It just means you're like the other 85% of the population. Normal. People like you that give those who are actually trying to help people a bad name. As much as I hate to admit it, even Izumi is better than you by comparison. At least she helps people in need. With an attitude like that, I doubt you would even be fit enough to be a sidekick. These words struck a chord in Tamashiro's mind. Sidekick. No, not even fit enough to be a sidekick. How insulting. His face grew angrier with each passing second, and like many victims of anger before him, a small amount of killing intent grew as well. How dare you insult me like that when your existence in this world is pointless compared to mine? Ha! In fact, I'm gonna wipe your pitiful existence from the face of this planet. His binging ball that circled around him grew dramatically in size, and began to once more charge at Izuku. But unlike the other times before, Izuku's barrier was unable to counter it, and the binging ball blitzed into him, sending him flying into a light pole. Ow! That's gonna leave a mark. He thinks to himself. But the assault continues to escalate, as more binging ball crash into him, sending him flying into the air, and crashing into a couple of nearby buildings. So are you going to fight back now? What kind of adult would use their powers to fight a child? Izuku says in a weak voice. Besides, it's not like I know how to use them properly. Progress toward Izuku's explosion, 67%, come on already. Show me your power. If you won't, you're gonna end up dead. I won't use them. Fine, then let's see how much you can take with a little endurance test. He begins to create a large quantity of binging ball, that begin to line up as if they are being used as artillery. Binging ball Gatling Guyuan. The 50 or so binging ball begin to fire towards Izuku, with them concentrating their attack on his stomach and face. Come on, fight back. Fight back. Izuku, while being hit by the binging ball, waved his hand up in an attempt to defend himself, accidentally knocking back one of the ball over the top of Tamashiro's head. Ha! What had just occurred in that moment, would be an event that would haunt Tamashiro for the rest of his life. His binging ball has accidentally ate the hair on the top of his head. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Izuku had no idea what the kid was rambling on about, with his face ending up swollen as a result of the barrage of attacks. But Tamashiro would not react in the right headspace. His killing intent had finally taken over. "You're dead," he said as thunder began to crack in the sky. Top of Tama's head, 0%, "You're going to pay for this. I won't forgive you no matter what you say." Izuku, while still being blinded as a result of his swollen face, jumped back in pain, hitting the wall on accident, as both of his arms were suddenly consumed by two of his binging ball. Izuku screamed out violently in pain from having his arms consumed by the binging ball, before Tamashiro began to wrap his hands around his throat. "Damn it, what is happening to me?" Tamashiro thought to himself. "Why did things turn out like this? You. This is all your fault, you bstrd. If only you hadn't shown up, maybe you would have still had your arms and would still be living your miserable existence. Damn it." Izuku could feel his life slowly fading from his body. He was running out of time. But even if he wanted to use his powers to attack this boy, he couldn't. Something was stopping him from doing so. Or rather, something in his mind was stopping him from doing so. That's when it hit him. He was trying to reject these powers. He wanted to live life without having to use them, without having to acknowledge that he was now part of the 85% of the population. Because that's all he's ever known, life without having powers of his own. All that mistreatment in his youth, all that suffering he had to deal with on his own, it was basically for nothing now that he had these powers. Slowly, he began to feel his mind slipping away, as a metaphorical percentage counter began to go up dramatically. 72%, 75%, 79%, it continued to go up, yet Izuku didn't even try to use his powers. Maybe somewhere deep in his subconscious, he believed this was for the best. At least he helped Koda and his friends before he died. At least he met Hannabi before he passed on to the next life. 81%, 84%, 87%, 92%. Just as the percentage counter continued to go up, it suddenly stopped. Izuku had lost complete consciousness, and fell lifelessly onto the ground, startling the young boy. "Ha! Hey Yagi! Wake up! Hey, don't die, wait Yagi!" He began to break down in horror at what he had done. He let his anger get the better of him, and because of that, he killed someone. An innocent man who was only trying to stop him from doing something stupid. His face began to have a depressed look as a result, as he merely stood over the man, feeling defeated, left to fill the void in his heart with a feeling of deep emptiness. Or so it seemed. Shooting brightly into the sky, a white pillar of light suddenly appeared where Izuku's body once was, before his body began to move on its own. His skin and hair had changed into a pitch-dark color, while his eyes beamed in a pure white color, no pupils or irises in sight. What the hell? What is that thing? No response came from the entity, only the cold and calculating stare of a malevolent spirit, angered by the actions of this young man. It lifted its stubbed arm up to his, flicking it in a motion which caused Tamashiro to be sent flying into the wall. He coughed up saliva as a result. The rubble from the resulting damage began to swirl around Izuku, all while the energy in the atmosphere began to be absorbed into him. What are you? What are you? But Tamashiro subconsciously knew what this thing was. Something that must never be touched. Something incomprehensible. Its identity, unknown. Tamashiro began to feel his body float in the air, as his sense of gravity was lost to him, all while the building around him also began to float up into the sky. You're kidding me. What is this? What in the world have I awakened? He yelled out in horror. The entity shot out a powerful green aura all across the area, while Tamashiro and the building began to fly further up into the sky. He screamed out violently, his mind unable to comprehend the situation. That's enough. I'm sorry. I won't do it again, please. I won't use my powers to hurt anyone anymore. He floated up into the sky, until he passed the dark clouds above, seeing the sun above him. His mind was made clear as a result of the experience. He held no anger towards Izuku, not after what he had just done. He was in a total state of bliss. The building remains, and Tamashiro, began to slowly descend to the ground, as the sky began to clear up, and loud footsteps began to make themselves known. The source of these footsteps. Various costumed heroes and police officers surrounding Izuku, who was still consumed by the dark aura covering his body. You there. A hero in shiny knight-like armor yells out. For the illegal use of powers, assault and the vast destruction of property, I am placing you under arrest. One particular hero stepped up towards Izuku, with green lightning surging all over her body as a result of her activating her quirk. Izumi Yagi had made her appearance known. Please cooperate and stay still. You'll only cause more trouble if you decide to retaliate. I don't want to have to hurt you, she said to him. The entity began to dissipate its aura, revealing Izuku's face to the heroes and police. While many became confused by the reveal, Izumi, who was standing in front of the crowd of heroes and police, began to hold her breath in shock. Shoot, I can't even open my mouth to speak. Izuku thought to himself. What even happened? I thought I died just now. Wait, what are these people surrounding me? That's when he saw her standing a small distance from him. Izumi. Oh man. Guess my 10 years of peace has finally come to an end. She's found me. Oh well, I'm way too tired to think about such a thing. Progress toward Izuku's explosion, 0%. He collapsed onto the ground, while the sounds of Izumi yelling and sirens began to blare out. Time passed in the blink of an eye for the world, while to Izuku, it only felt like a few short hours. He began to slowly open his eyes, the light disorienting him for a short period of time. But he was able to quickly adjust to the situation. Where am I? He softly said to himself. It was that he noticed that he was lying on a hospital bed, and his arms were restored. He sat up from bed, completely in awe at the revelation. My arms, they're back. But how? That's when he heard the door open. You're awake. Well, that's pretty good. The doctor said to him. We honestly thought you would be asleep for at least 2 weeks. Huh? 2 weeks. Yep, you were sent here by the police almost 5 days ago. 5 days ago. How? When? Mr. Yagi, calm down. Izuku began to slightly breathe heavily, while the doctor began to divulge the situation. Now, because of how long you were out for, you're going to need to have someone look after you for at least a couple of days. Seriously. Look, as much as I think that would be nice, I'll be Finn Dash, he said before falling to the ground. With all due respect. You haven't been moving for days, and you've only just gotten your arms regenerated by Eri. So, I recommend that for this week that you be looked after by immediate family. Lucky for you, your sister volunteered to do the job. Izuku stared at the doctor for a short while. His face brandishing a perplexed expression, before contorting in horror. Who? Progress toward Izuku's explosion, 15%. Izuku felt no such gratitude for this action. Only complete and utter annoyance. Chapter end.